Obviously, it's good on white targets. It's gray targets are good for training at night. All right, hey gents, welcome back to Tactical Rifleman. This video is brought to you in part by the Sportsman's Guide. All right, you get stuff there. One, you get it a lot cheaper than a lot of the other online places, and you're helping out Tactical Rifleman at the same time. Tonight, I want to talk about night shooting. If you go back and look at the whole definition, it is adapt to low light, no light situations while maintaining efficient target detection, identification, acquisition, and engagement performance. That's a mouthful. Bottom line, what it comes down to, though, is it comes down to consistency. You want to do it the same at night as you do during the day, but I'm going to come back to that. Now, for pistols, what do we really need to see at night? Yes, you're absolutely right. We need to be able to see the sights. Now, let's say you have tritium sights in your pistol. That works great. You can see those dots in the dark. But the guys that like to run those big, bright fiber optics at night, I know they're easy to see, big, bright during the day, but if there's limited light outside, no street lights on top of you, it's going to be hard to see those fiber optics. Now, there are some companies, Mariglow, for example, they make fiber optic sights that have a small tritium insert also to allow you to see them at night. You know me, I swear by my Trijicon HDs. They've got tritium, and it's awesome. However, even if you can see your sights in the dark, it doesn't help you if you can't see the target. All right, so you can see the target. You look down range and you can see big, bright targets, white, gray, and brown. The problem, though, is just because you can see the outline on the flat range, can you identify it as a threat, not a threat, or a threat that warrants deadly force? Easier said than done. You have to be able to see hands. You can't just look for an outline of a target. You have to be able to identify it as a threat that actually warrants deadly force. Easier said than done. Now, with that, that means that we're going to need to use other things. All right? Lights. Now, not necessarily on the weapons, but other lights. Well, I'm going to come back to that. Now, what about with a rifle? All right? With a rifle, we need to see the same thing. You need to see either your iron sights, okay, old school iron sights, or we love our red dots. Red dots are great. In this case, I have my green Ayub Technique. Same thing. Y'all are tracking what I'm saying. All right, now, what about lasers? All right, I can't put the laser on the camera, but I'm hoping you can see that. Looking down range, you can see the target. You can see the red dot, but you cannot identify that target as friend or foe. All right? You need more than just a red laser. Is it a threat? Is it not a threat? Is it a threat that warrants deadly force? So having your big bright lights on your rifles, for everybody it makes sense to run that on their guns. All soft guys run lights on their rifles. They do. Now, what about when you don't have your long gun with you? I'm sorry guys, but I don't bring a rifle with me to the movie theater. I don't bring a rifle with me coming out of Walmart, going out into the dark parking lot. All right? I'll always have my pistol with me. Likewise, I need to be able to see. Now, there are different sources of light. Indoors, what do you have? You have room lights, you have hallway lighting coming down, you have ambient light coming through windows. So in a home defense situation where the lights are off, you know where the beams of light are in your house. You know where lights from other rooms illuminate. You would see where shadows are moving. You know where the shadows are in your house. Use those lights to your advantage. All right. Other lights out there, street lights, vehicle lights, spotlights, flashlights. Everybody thinks flashlights right away when they're thinking about shooting at night. But I want you to think about all those other sources of light. All right. Now, considerations when using all those other sources of light is, number one, what's the location of the light and what's the angle? So if there's that street light that's illuminating the bad guy, use that to your advantage. Think, is that light illuminating just a bad guy or is it also illuminating you? All right? That may affect how you decide to pie it off, what route you're going to take. Stay in the shadows and use that light so it illuminates just the target, not you. Now, if all you have are just fixed iron sights and you can't see that the sights on your weapon, You might want to pie it a little closer so it does also illuminate the sights on your gun. But understand, once you get that close, you're also allowing that street light to illuminate you. All right, just a few things to consider. Now, I mentioned training. Train as you fight. All of your night shooting techniques, right? You want them to mirror as closely as possible as the techniques that you shoot during the day. If the only time you get in a gunfight in your entire life is in the dark, right? The millions and millions of rounds that you've spent shooting like this on the range during the day do not help you a lick if you have to shoot like this. See what I'm saying? This grip on my pistol is not what I've practiced with those millions of rounds out at the range. All right, so pick night shooting techniques that most closely mirror all those rounds that you shot during the day. That's why we love the weapon mounted flashlights. This one, even on subcompacts now, there are lights available for subcompacts, such as this one from Crimson Trace. It has a light and a laser, right? So even on a small subcompact pistol, a small pocket pistol, you can still illuminate the target, you can get on that target, and you can hit that target. If you're going to carry your concealed carry pistol and you don't carry a flashlight mounted on it, right? You can carry instead of just carrying a small handheld flashlight in your pocket, why not carry a small pistol light? I even have a little belt clips made by Blackhawk. It's out of production now, but you can sit your pistol light on that clip, wear it on your belt, and then when you have to pull out that concealed carry pistol, it quickly comes undone and you can stick that thing onto your concealed carry pistol, and now you're able to get back in the fight. All right, for those of you guys that love your IMRs, you've got to be careful with your red dot sights on your pistols. If you're out shooting in a dark spot at night, a lot of these pistol red dots, they have auto dim on it. So in other words, when you're outside, the light gets really bright. That's awesome. When you go inside, I'm saying when you're inside and there's lights on, or you're outside, it's really bright. The dot gets really bright. When you go inside and it's dark, or you're outside after the sun goes down, the sensor reads less light. It dims the dot a lot, makes it very dim, which is great, except for when you turn on that flashlight. You've got so much light on the front of that target that you can't see that dim light. You've completely illuminated downrange, but now your red dot sensor is reading the light up above you, which is very dark. And if you put it on a bright target, I can barely see that light right now. I wouldn't want to shoot this thing like this, especially when you've got a bunch of guys online, lots of street lights, headlights, but up above you is wide open darkness. I'm just saying it depends on what kind of light, what kind of IMR pistol red dot sights you get, all right? But nothing is going to beat your good old reliable Surefire. In this case, I'm running the new X300V, so I can run the head IR or visible light. This thing's awesome under nods, man. It's the bomb. Flip that puppy on, even on dark targets. Obviously, it's good on white targets. Gray targets are good for training at night. But even even brown targets, 100 different light companies out there. Olight makes some good ones. I've got a rechargeable Olight one I'm testing out. It's great. It's good for pocket pistols, but for a combat gun, stream lights are good, everything else. But honest guys, I swear by Surefire lights, always have, always will. That's just a bright son of a gun right there. All my ergonomics, all of my body movements, my speed reloads, everything stays the same as they do during the day. All right, so that's just why we try to do that. All right, so like I said, have it mirror, have your night training mirror as closely as possible as your day training. And likewise, if you do not, for example, I have a student who from Germany, they are not allowed to have weapon-mounted lights on their legal pistols. That means he has to train with it being handheld, okay? That's fine. So if that's the case, your day training should also reflect what your night training is going to be. They're not two separate things, gents. Muscle memory, why develop extra muscle memory to learn two different ways to shoot? Focus on having one perfect way to shoot that can be used in both day and night shooting. Because remember, when you go into fight or flight, that moment of truth when you're scared to death, your subconscious mind is what's going to kick in, and it's going to fall back in where that muscle memory is. And if that muscle memory is always to grab for that speed reload, and now you've got a flashlight in that hand, you just completely blew that speed reload when needed. All right, so I'm just saying that's some considerations to think of when you're setting up your kit, when you're thinking about what kind of equipment you want to use. All right, now, your primary weapon, your rifle, should always have a light mounted on it. Likewise, you guys that carry concealed all the time and for home defense, your primary weapon, if your primary weapon is a pistol, gents, you need to have a light on that weapon. All right, you talk to our whole, all our assault force, our pistols, even though that's our secondary, they all have lights on them. All right, make it mirror. All right, all your nights, your flashlight shooting techniques, all those techniques have advantages and disadvantages. I'm going to show you guys a bunch of different shooting techniques that they use. All right, for using all the different kinds of flashlights. I want you to know what correct looks like, right, and why they were using a different technique. But one thing that they all have in common is your basic engagement procedure. All right, so it starts off with presentation. You think there's a threat out there, you present that firearm. All right, as you're presenting out, then you activate, you search, you're going to detect. Now, once you found that target, you're going to assess it and identify it. All right, does it acquire a legitimate threat? If it does, engage that puppy. Engage it, follow through. Did I hit? Did I get the desired effect? Is there anybody else that needs more love? Search and assess. Once you found there's nothing else, deactivate the light source and then relocate, move to another location. Come back out. When you're ready to shoot again, start that same sequence again. Present, activate, search, detect, assess, identify. If it's hostile, neutralize the target, deactivate, and move. So long as you're following those same steps, you're golden. But guys come out on the shooting range and all they do is they pull it out, click, bang. They're not following the legitimate sequence that they need to be using. Remember, guys, if you're going to practice, practice correctly. All right, now the first technique I want to show you guys, and obviously shooting with a weapon-mounted light is always going to be the best technique, always. But let's say you don't have a light mounted on your pistol, all right? I'll take this one right here without it. I don't have a light mounted on this pistol right here. No light. Empty mag. I'll make sure one more time it's empty. All right, now, the first technique I want to talk about is the Rogers technique. Rogers technique, you hold it between your first and second, your first and second fingers, and you're activating the push button on the rear of the rear of the flashlight with the palm of your hand. Now what that allows you to do is you can then mirror your hand to your normal grip very, very closely, and you're able to shoot. Now what you're doing is you're shooting as close to how you shoot during the day. Your grip is not quite as strong using this technique, all right? But it closely mirrors what you do during the day. Right, that's the Rogers technique. It's awesome, it's good technique. Preferred by a lot of guys. Now there's another one called the Chapman Technique. The Chapman Technique is also for when you have that push button on the back, but you can't activate it with your palm. Why would that be? Because some lights, they have got these detents around the edge that keep you from accidentally turning it on. You've got to actually reach through the metal protector to turn that light on. All right, so how it's done, and this is very common for our law enforcement, is they like to run those knuckles up underneath, and it allows them to support that arm. Okay, that's great, but why don't I practice like that during the day? I should practice with my hand supported like that during the day. All my shooting should be done like that. Okay, now, like I said, pros and cons, but I want you to know why they do it. A lot of times they're not allowed to have that gun with that light on them pointed at the target. So they use their handheld light. They can run it up and down the suspect. And when it comes to time to actually shoot, they can quickly get on target with it. All right, one of my other favorites is it's called the Ayub Technique. All right, it's big, ugly flashlights, and it's for side button flashlights. And he holds it to the side. Now, nobody likes this because nobody uses these big flashlights anymore, but think about when they were first using this technique. This was the standard, or the even bigger D-cell mag lights. That was the standard. This is what everybody had, was these big mag lights. When Ayub designed this technique, what he did is he's bringing his hands as close together, and he can still activate the light. He's following the principle of having the grip as close as possible, mirror how he did it during the day. My favorite, again, if you've got a flashlight that's got a recessed button like that, hard to do. The Hargraves Technique, another law enforcement officer, he modified the Rogers Technique, where you had to have a exposed button, and he sits the hand a little further forward and actually presses the button up against one of the lower knuckles. You like that strobe, don't you? We need to be in the club. But it works good with a recessed button, but it also works good with one that's not recessed. All right? So if you're not sure what kind of flashlight you're going to grab, the Hargraves Technique is actually a pretty decent one. FBI offset is the one where they hold the arm out here, out to the side. Now I want you to understand why they were doing this. They're doing this because the thought process is the bad guys are shooting at the light. All right, so that's why they hold it out here. All right, they hold that light out to the side. They can still see. It helps illuminate the iron sights on the pistol, and the guy's not shooting directly at their face. Okay, so I'm not saying I would use that technique. Can you imagine going through a doorway like this with your arm sticking out? I don't agree with that technique, but I want you to keep it in your mental toolbox, because if you're in an area where the bad guys are actually shooting at the lights, you might want to hold it out here, all right? Hold it away from you. You be on one side of the pole, you put it on the other side of the pole. It is a technique, it's worth practicing. One other technique I want to share with you is one that's called the neck hold technique. It's designed to be used with side button flashlights, and they actually hold it up over the shoulder. Now, what this does is it illuminates the sights on your pistol, it illuminates the bad guys, all right? Best technique back here, you basically, if you're a good strong-handed shooter, this is a great technique. All right? If you don't have tritium sights, it's a great technique. All right? Now, but I want you to understand why they did this technique. All right? Law enforcement officers, all right, same thing, this pistol's empty. Pistol's empty. They have their flashlight in one hand. They've told the guy to freeze. The suspect freezes. What does he have to do now? He has to reholster his gun. So while he reholsters, as soon as that law enforcement officer would dip his head, the bad guys would jump. Now imagine if this was those big 5D cell flashlights. Right? As soon as that thug goes to jump that law enforcement officer, he's got that quick strike with the flashlight. Guaranteed to just wear the guy out in the melon. All right? I don't care if the guy's got both his hands up. Z could put both his hands up. You let me hit you with a 4-cell D flashlight, it's going through those hands. It's going to get your melon. So anyways, that's why that technique was used back in the day. All right, that's the neck index technique. Good techniques. Now, there are pros and cons to all this stuff. All right, but basically what it comes down to is what's your technique? I don't care. You can use whatever technique you want. I've seen guys use headlamps tilted down because it illuminates their iron sights. It also illuminates the target. Not that big for me, but if all you have is a headlamp, I like taking the headlamp, I wrap the elastic around my hand so that the light sits right here, and that now allows me to grip the pistol like that. Right? So don't say that headlamps are just terrible. A lot of people prefer small handheld flashlights. I mentioned headlamps. Angled flashlights are a little weird. You've really got to get that finger and hold it. If that's your light, brother, run with it. I don't care. I just want you to practice with it. Does not matter so long as it works for you and you're willing to practice it. All right? So when you're doing your training, you have to adapt your training so that your low light and no light situations are being covered also. Now remember, you need, you got to have that target detection right away. All right? You need to be identify the target. Is it a threat? Is it a threat that warrants deadly force? You need to be able to acquire it properly with your sights, and then you need to be able to engage it. You have to be able to get hits on target. So long as you're doing that consistently, brother, I'm completely good with it. Whatever technique you're going to use. All right. So anyways, that's all I have this week on Tactical Rifleman. Y'all take care. Shoot straight. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything. If you like the shirt that we're wearing in the video, you can get it in our store.